Welcome all as we congregate to the greatest toy line in community, ever growing, ever changing. As we collect and adapt these figures to our own imaginations and embrace the fun, there's much to learn, especially if you're new to Mythics. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of New to Mythics. This episode number 54, is with Blake Cassata, Reconrage. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. Pleasure. It's a privilege.
It's my honor. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. You just got off work?
Yeah, a little bit ago. Yep. Made the mad dash home from the other side of Portland through traffic.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. I thank you very much. It's kind of short notice. I think I asked you yesterday or the day before, and we made it happen. So I appreciate that.
Oh, we made it happen, man. Hey, to be on here with you and listen to that, Art by Ackerman's got a catchy tune, but hey, don't sell yourself short, Greg. I was sitting there bopping to that, man. It was like, I'm telling you, I was just like chilling to your entry music.
It's in the right mindset. Absolutely. I want to jump in, and ever since I saw it, I've been thinking about it. And I'm kind of blindsiding you. I didn't tell you or prep you about this, but the episode that you did with my best buddy Mark, happy birthday, Mark.
Yes, happy birthday, Mark.
Meet the Collector. It's on his channel, Saturday Morning Toy Collector. He did an episode featuring you, and I just caught it last. I think it was Saturday. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday that it came out.
Which version?
I saw the original version where his daughter.
You saw the uncut, unedited,
yes, uncut.
Blake gone wild.
Yes, that's right. But I mean, it was fine to me. I mean, he's a little bit of a perfectionist. I just record my stuff and put it out. That way, it's as real and raw as possible. Unless there's some kind of huge thing, but
like if my bra strap fell off or something.
Yeah, or I had to get up and I had no pants on or something.
Whoa!
Showstopper. But anyways, so I just wanted to, and you can go over it again, but it was funny. Well, I'll just say, so I'll paraphrase, but basically you guys were talking about how something, well, like you weren't collecting for a while, and you were living this life, and I'll let you tell the story if you don't mind telling it again, but you kind of had an epiphany, or you kind of had a moment where you decided to start collecting again. Like you had a break from collecting, or it kind of was dormant in you. Like you were kind of living a life of, you're in the military, correct?
Yeah. Military and law enforcement there for about 20 plus years.
Yeah. Can you kind of go over that? Because I really thought it was really interesting. And then I'll talk to you about it after you tell your part there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you bringing that up, because what was funny is I talked to Mark about this even after our show, and it was one of those things where I left from graduation of high school in North Chicago, and within a couple of days I'm standing on the yellow footprints of the United States boot camp in San Diego, and my whole life was about ready to change. And it was changing, but I didn't realize how much my life was about ready to change. Lots of experiences, but to your question, and what came out on Meet the Collector was a vulnerability moment for me. And I've made that conversation, or I've had that moment with some close people, but I don't know if I've ever really put it out there. And that was that I come from a household, a very good family. My mom's a doll collector and an artist. I grew up in North Chicago. And so I was raised around collecting and, valuing your stuff now, and not going out in the sand pit and beating everything up. And
right.
And I enjoyed it. Right. And we talked about Kenner being my Kenner Star Wars being the first. And when I went off to boot camp, I made the decision to serve the country in the United States Marine Corps for two reasons. One, I wanted to do something different and push myself and see how far I could go. The other part was my dad, who is very much my, mentor. He's a very strong, silent type. Probably doesn't even notice if you watch this video. I mean, my mom was a mentor in one way with heart and love and diversity. And my dad was old school, farm boy from Illinois, and taught me everything by showing me,
Right.
And what I wanted to learn about myself was I wanted to learn, can I be tough? I saw all this stuff, Greg, growing up watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and all this. I wanted to be that guy.
Right.
The right way, but I wanted to be that guy.
Right.
And so I embarked on a journey. Well, unfortunately, along that journey, I lost a part of who I was, Blake, the action figure toy collector, the big kid at heart. And I became this serious, gung-ho Marine. And then after 8 years and several combat, experiences, moved right into law enforcement for several more years. And, in that industry, maybe not as much now, but back when you and I were younger, in that industry, that's a macho industry, right? And collecting action figures and saying, hey guys, I got to get out of here because I'm going to go to a Comic-Con, they would have been like, dude, you sure you're drawing the right military? Or like, what's going on?
Right. Yeah.
And this wasn't, a perception in my own head. I heard the comments, and it, unfortunately, it shaped me.
Mm-hmm.
It shaped me to stop collecting. Now, you said a magic word in your question there about did you give it up? Was there a break, or were you dormant?
Mm-hmm.
I was dormant.
Right.
The only thing that I think the reason why I stayed dormant as long as I did was unlike in this day and age where we have so much technology that brings us all the cool stuff on our phone, on a tablet, on the TV, YouTube. We didn't have all that back then.
Right.
So it's easy to get disconnected. Yep. It all had to be up here or in the Christmas catalog or, something like that.
Right.
So it's easy for me to detach and go into this adult macho alpha, like bad boy direction and forget, what was in here, what brought me a lot of peace, a lot of fun, and a lot of really awesome, connectivity. Taught me a lot through my action figure collecting. So that was what I explained on Meet the Collector, and that's a little bit more in depth right now. And I appreciate you asking that question because it means a lot to me how I came back. Mm-hmm. And that was in 2007. I was in Denver, and I had left the sheriff's department that I was working for in northern Colorado. And a friend of mine was like, "Hey, do you want to come down to Denver and see the Comic-Con?" I'm like, "Oh," and it was kind of a dual thing. I was like, "Oh, yeah." And then I was like, ooh, that could be really cool. But the inside of me was still trying to come out of that, tough guy role. Or I don't even want to say tough guy because I don't want to give it a bad label, but this protector server role.
Right.
Okay.
Masculine,
communities like, as somebody, help me, I need your help. Let me put down my action figure. I'll be right there. Right. They don't want to hear that, right? They want to hear, I've got you, so. Right. You kind of unfortunately fall into that stereotype in those type careers. And so with that said, when I went to this Comic-Con, I remember walking in, it was in downtown Denver. I remember walking into the event center and going, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. But in the same point, I was had all these feelings.
Right.
Greg, when you smell something and you're like, man, that reminded me from this time I went to the carnival when I was 12 years old and this wonderful memory. I had all these feelings coming over me in regards to collecting and how cool it felt and just the enjoyable creativity that I had with these figures growing up as a kid. And from that point on, we were off and rolling. And it was a Spawn figure. I said it in Meet the Collector. It was a Spawn figure. Right. I've always liked, and if you look at my Instagram, and I think if you look a lot, even the customs and stuff that pop and swap, and obviously I'm a Necronominus fan. That is one of those things I gravitate to that, the Iron Maiden albums and all that type of art type stuff.
Mm-hmm. So was your friend that introduced you or invited you, was he also a collector himself?
Yeah, he was a collector of Marvel. He's a big Marvel. In fact, I remember he loved the Thing. That was his thing. He loves Thing. Right. And I know I saw your shirt and I'm sitting there going, okay, this is going to It's going to go
Yeah,
well if he asks the
absolutely.
question. Yeah. So yeah, he loves the thing. He loves Fantastic Four. And what a great foursome they are.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I just watching that, I was so like transfixed, and like I think you kind of put voice to what a lot of us men, and I don't mean to just say men only, but it is something that a lot of us have dealt with, in that there's a stigma to collecting toys as an adult, and when you kind of put voice to it, it's like, man, I just started thinking about it, and it was like, my dad, loved me to death, would do anything for me, but like if he saw this room with these, I got Batman masks, and I've got Mythics on every shelf, like he'd be like, "What are you doing, mijo? Like what's going on?" Like he would not be able to like grasp that I put this much money and time and effort and love into collecting this stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
him, it would just be a silly, you know, um, but we are, it's who you are, it's who I am, and it's like I think it's a disservice to yourself to deny it, and I'm glad that something happened, you had that epiphany, or you had that moment where it's like, you know I can be myself, and it's okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely correct. I mean, you're absolutely correct on everything you just said. Big takeaways for me was, the whole your story you just shared with your dad, going back in time and seeing your room that you have right now, in the space that you have all these action figures and toys, and the awesome Batman mask, the authentic, the whole throwback. Um, you know, it's not about. I think people need to understand that, and I'm not going to get into a philosophical side of this on this stream here, but I will say a little bit around enjoy what you do,
Mhm.
accept who you are, and stop trying to conform to what everyone else thinks you should be.
Right.
Stop worrying about the labels and the titles and all that, and just live life and be happy. We've all struggled with it. I've been down that road, and the reason I recognize it, even within myself, is I lived it,
Right.
and I'm in a better place now than I've ever been. And when it comes to action figure collecting, I will do this till the day I'm no longer on this earth, because it brings me joy.
Yeah. And I do get psychological on it and think like, what is it about these figures that brings us so much happiness? Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it connects us to the boys that we used to be, to the children that we used to be. I don't know. Like, there's just something so just um innocent, maybe, that
Mhm.
opening a new figure, like bringing one home or getting it in the mail, and you open it and you smell it and you look at it, you undo the ties and you pose it and you look at it and
Yeah.
you put it on the shelf. But it just gives you some kind of, like, you could have the worst day, but when you open a figure, and I started doing that, like I would have a bad week and I'd be like, you know what, I've got a bunch of figures here. I'm just gonna open one or open two, and it like for some reason it just erases whatever day that I had. I just wonder what that is. Like, what would you call that? Like, what do you think the reason for that is?
Well, I think you nailed part of it, and that is there is not a psychologist by no means, but there
Me
is a
neither.
but I mean, just the things I've learned, and as a manager, I've been a manager over large groups of people, and you have to learn things, how people work, and I think one of the things is subconsciously, I think we have a lot of things that are programmed into us from our childhood,
Right.
both good and bad, right? Depending on your upbringing. But this is definitely one that brings out and brings back happy feelings and
Mhm.
brings back, oh my God, Christmas. I remember when. I mean, what collector, especially what action figure in the mythic community, I've had this conversation at Legion's Con, if not once, I've had it, 30, 40 times with individual collectors. What brought you into this, and what's your fondest memory? Everybody goes back to Christmas morning.
Right.
Somebody's got a Christmas morning or a Christmas catalog from
Yes.
J.C. Penney or Sears and Roebuck and stuff like that. And those are happy moments.
Mhm.
And I think as human beings, I think we want to tap in to those happy moments,
Right.
whether we subconsciously control that or we subconsciously are insides reaching out saying, I need positivity. And when you grab a figure, back to your connection, when you grab a figure like this amazing Elijah figure from the Necronominus wave that, of course, I have in a Skelly form because I'm a Necronominus fan, it puts imagination and artistry in a tangible form. Now you can touch that character. I used to do sales after I got in the Marine Corps. I was in the fitness industry. I used to run gyms all over and work for some of the big box gyms before I moved over to where I'm at now. And one of the things I used to teach people was, it's all fun and it's all, fine and dandy to tell somebody why they should buy something or whatever. But when it comes to putting something like this in their hand and they actually get to play with it and realize it moves and it has character. And then when you start doing stuff like this, from this to what? A head tilt, and you start giving it emotion. I think what it is just these are those subconscious thoughts that have always been there, and wonderful memories and feelings that we have. They're triggered by whether it's touch or something we see, like and Greg, when we were kids, action figures weren't like this.
No.
3 POA, 5 POA, you were lucky.
Right.
And for anybody watching, that's points of articulation. So, but now you're talking, you get an action figure with 22 points of articulation, you got the action figure snobs out there like, that's just not enough. That doesn't work the right way.
Right. Yeah.
Let me tell you, when the arm goes like this, the legs move, and you got head that goes like this. That's all you got.
You're good. Yeah. I mean, as kids, we didn't. I didn't care about how well, because some figures they articulated better, like Ego. I mean, that stuff articulated pretty dang good.
Yeah,
Star Wars, not so much, but G.I. Joe articulated well. But I think as kids, maybe it's because we didn't know any better, but it didn't really matter because I think our imaginations just totally filled in whatever blanks or filled in whatever, deficiencies there was in anything. I mean, it was all about imagination. I think nostalgia is a huge thing for toys these days, is that they really tap into the nostalgia factor for sure.
I got a question for you, Greg.
Sure. I like that. Go ahead.
How many times did you have your bedroom or somewhere in your bedroom set up like a scene from a movie or your own story playing out? And you didn't really care what anybody else thought, but you were so engrossed in that. And it brought you so much joy with your action figures and your Star Wars ships or whatever it was, G.I. Joe. But how many times do you remember doing that when you were a kid?
A million. I had this thing, and I don't know if anyone else did. Like, I always wanted to be a filmmaker. That was my thing. I was born in LA. I loved the whole. So like whenever I played, it was like a movie. And so like my eyes, I would like squint and make like different like tints to the movie. Like if I squinted very hard, it'd be black and white, or like my eyes would close and then they'd slowly fade open. So it'd be a fade in or a fade out. But no, I would have scenarios. I liked outside. I was raised mostly by my grandparents, and if we were inside, we were doing chores. So usually I would, take a spaceship or a couple of action figures in my pocket, and I'd head outside, and my grandparents had a few acres. And so I would just go out there and just endless adventures. I didn't need all kinds of dioramas and cool stuff like that. I had the outdoors in my imagination and just filled in all the blanks that needed to be filled out. But yeah, how about you? Did you do the same thing?
Oh, I did it all the time. And to be honest with you, another little neat morsel, something that just floats my boat, and you name it. I love these terms. I'm definitely aging myself with my little terms like floats my boat and stuff like
It's
that.
all right.
But, I would set mine up in a scene. Not necessarily. I really like to replicate the scenes with my Star Wars figures from the movie. Like I had the Hoth set, so I had the AT-AT Walker and later, and then, Creature Canteen. I set up everything and I tried to replicate like the whole movie And then I would take Luke Skywalker and Ben Obi-Wan in my land speeder and just kind of drive through the different sets. But the thing that was going on in my head was more of, I wanted to make a stop action movie.
Yes.
And here's a little tidbit about wonderful Portland metro area. Have you ever seen the movie Caroline, Box Trolls, all of those?
I believe so, yeah.
If you haven't, watch them again, and then go on YouTube and watch Laika Studios, Laika Studios,
yeah,
and have your brain be prepared to have your brain just in shock and awe in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Laika Studios is right out here by me, and they make all those movies. And the amount of work that goes into making a stop action movie is mind blowing. When I was a child, that's what I wanted to do with these figures. This is what I envisioned. And I've told people this, for a long time now. If I had the technology, and I'm not saying that I'm dead yet, and I still might not try to do some of this, right? But if I had the technology that the kids have now,
oh man,
I probably would not be I probably wouldn't have gone in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying this for Marine Corps recruiting to get it bad, but I'm just saying I probably wouldn't have gone in the Marine Corps because I probably would have tapped even more into the artist that I was. I used to draw. I mentioned this in Meet the Collector. I used to draw, and I was a pretty good drawer from everything I was told. But the end result is, if I had the option to start making stop action movies with action figures or artwork or something like that, I might have taken that artist career this direction.
Right.
Now, I don't regret my journey. I have learned so much and seen so many places. I've been in all 50 states and 27 different countries.
Right.
And I've seen and learned a lot of things. But from the art side and the action figure collecting side, I think if I had the technology that I have now, that we have now, back then, I might have had a different journey.
I totally agree with you. I think that there's something to the fact that basically you have to struggle to keep that artistic fire, because reality can, it can rob you of that, having bills, making a baby, reality, it can take away from that dream of being an artist. So whenever I see someone that when they're young, they're like, I want to be a cartoonist. I want to make comic books. I want to make movies. I'm like, do it. Like, you only have one life, as far as I know. And, how you spend it is on you. So,
right.
Don't give up on your dreams. Do what that is that you want. Like answer to that artistic self that's in you, because for you and I, like, I wanted to be a filmmaker. You wanted to be an artist, but, we took the long way around. Who knows where we will end up, but, we have it now. We have that need and desire now. And maybe some of it has to do with the reawakening or the imagination that these figures put back into us, like the imagination of, just seeing these mythics. I don't know. It's just, it's inspiring,
Well, and to that note, I want to comment on that one. Not only are these mythics inspiring, it's the energy and community that this company, Four Horsemen Studios, and you and I know that you and I are very deep in this community.
Right.
We've spent time. We're very much pro Four Horsemen Studios. We're huge fans, as well as I kind of feel like, in a weird way, that I'm an ambassador.
Right.
You're an ambassador.
I agree.
To that brand label, because you believe in it, right? And I don't believe in it because they make better plastic. I believe in it because of who they are,
right,
what they do, and what they bring to the table, not only because they're fans and they understand it, but I mean, how many times have you looked at some of these figures and some of the designs in G-Con or new rollouts or waves, or we get up for a figure obscura and wait early in the morning, especially here on the West Coast? How early were you up, and we're sitting there going, oh, and you see it and you're blown away every time.
Right.
Every time. You may be like, okay, I didn't see that coming, but I'm getting it.
Right.
Right. And then there's other ones you see like, oh, Bodvar, the bear. I mean, G-Con for that one 2 years ago when Bodvar came out and everyone just went, whoa, you know.
Yeah.
And then last
Insane.
year, the Goosebumps, Beathir comes
Right.
out behind the canvas, you know. Those are the tie-ins that Four Horsemen understand us as collectors tie back to our childhood
Yes.
connection and back to what you said earlier, whether it's a subconscious or conscious
Yes.
memory, they tap into that. And the reason they tap into it is because they get it.
Yes.
They're collectors and they have the same feelings we get.
Right. And we're all kind of loosely the same age. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
all kind of grew up in the D&D era, and, you know, Conan the Barbarian. And I asked Cornboy, I'm like, what made you guys decide on fantasy? And he's like, we had different thoughts. We were not sure. Then we just decided, let's do fantasy. And I'm like, well, how sure were you? And he was like, I mean, we gambled basically everything on the fact that fantasy was going to be, you know, mythic, you know, that's what we decided to do was fantasy. And you know, they gambled in it and it paid off. I mean, it's just
Gambled a big, paid off in a big way.
yeah. But
and paid off
the artistry.
more than plastic. You know what I mean? It paid
Right.
off more than just another action figure line. Their gamble gave a lot of people smiles and happiness. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, when I was in the military and policing, my goal was to protect and serve and make somebody smile and feel safe. That was my goal.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be that person that helps somebody out, that, you know, in this scenario or direction of life, they're bringing like childhood happiness and smiles and feelings in here.
Yes.
And I know anybody that watches this type of, you know, this type of streaming and stuff, if they're not into it, gosh, you know, I think part of my goal is to make sure they understand exactly why we're into it.
Right. And sometimes I feel like it's difficult for someone outside looking in. And we're not exclusive people. There's no exclusivity here. There's no like gatekeeping or anything. Like anyone that wants to be part of this community is always welcome. But it's hard to like describe it to someone who's not in it. You know, like it's a toy line and a toy line community, but it's like way more than that, you know. And it's just hard to describe and to quantify to other people like what it is. But I think it's just good and good people, good toys, good community.
Yeah, the energy here is excellent. You know, there are lots of other toy communities out there, lots of other live streams, lots of other groups. And I've been on these live streams, or at least watching them. Okay. I've been on a lot of live streams, sitting there watching them or making comments or throwing out super chats or whatever. And the end result is that none of them give me the same feeling that I get when I'm on a live stream that's mythic, cosmic, figure obscura, Four Horsemen exclusive. There is, and you know, I was talking, I'll leave this individual's name out because he's big into toy development. And I was having a conversation with him about 2 months ago. And he makes a lot of stuff for G.I. Joe figures. And he and I go way back in our age, and we were talking. We were having such a great conversation through Instagram. And he said, you know, Four Horsemen, you know, there's a stigma out there. It's like a clique. And I said, no. It's not a clique. It's a family.
Yes.
And anybody's welcome. The front door to the castle is wide open. The banquet table is set. Just come on in.
Right.
And join the family. Pick up a goblet or pick up whatever you're doing, like in Legion's Lounge with Trevor and Dork Lair and
nice bourbon or something.
Yeah, and just raise your cup and join the family. It doesn't have to. It could be a cup of water. I don't care. But just it's community.
Water. Yeah, we got water. And I think what it is when you go to a con, when you go to Legion's Con or whatever, and you meet the creators or the people that work for the company, they're all equally as kind and generous and friendly. And you can actually become friends with these guys. So it's not like it's not a faceless company. It's not, a corporation. It's their people. So when, you see online, maybe somebody's saying, the shipping is shitty, or, the customer service, they're ignoring me, or they're not, how come I'm not getting my stuff? It's like, you're not trying to understand, or you don't know the people that are involved.
Mhm.
It's a small company, and they do the very best that they can. And they care. It's a small company. I asked Diego, I go, how many is there of you guys? And at the time there was like 13 people. And like you guys are out here competing with all these other toy companies, and there's 13 of you guys, and you guys are making these freaking articulated masterpieces.
Yeah.
So I take it personal, because I know the people. I know how much they care, and I know that they care about us. Like Jeremy, he yes, we get assaulted every month with new pre-orders and new things that we have to buy, but we're doing it because we want to. We're not doing it because we have to. I open my wallet because I love the stuff and I'm excited. I'm like a kid. Like you said, every time there's a new pre-order or figure obscura, when it pops up on Friday, you see the figure obscura key and a little hint or whatever. You're like, oh man, I'm excited, or the possibility of a new wave coming. It's like this excitement that you have. But they do it for us, the surprises and this dragon, like they do it for us. They said, and I believe them, that we're not getting this huge profit from this dragon. It's like, we're doing it because you guys have been asking since the beginning, and we wanted to make it like the most amazing, fantastical, dragon that we could give you. Can you imagine getting something like that, Blake, as a kid? Oh my
Oh my
God,
goodness.
insane.
Another thing they do that I think really ties them in is being, the creme de la creme of toy makers, action figure company. Take for example, Figure Obscura. Not only do they create a line of figures in, like, let's say a Mythic or Cosmic line that has a wave and a release and you invest money. They have that. Then they bring a figure that you can actually have this like tradition, right? I get up, grab my cup of coffee 3 times a year, right? Maybe 4. You never know. 3 times a year, right? And you know what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'm going to get a figure that's going to be put in front of me that is going to be, it's going to be knocked out of the park no matter what it is. I'm going to like it because they put thought into it, because they're passionate just as we are.
Right.
Number 2, there's the get on with Trevor or whoever you get on with in your pre-viewing party, right?
So much
and
fun.
Then we're all sitting there and we're like, okay, it's now 9 o'clock or whatever. We're refreshing our tablets, right? And there it is, and we're like, and sometimes you're like, oh, all in, get it, buy it, and you're like, we've gotten better now because at least it stays up a little bit longer. You don't have to buy it so fast.
See, that's another case where they care about you. Is like, if you're at work already, you can't buy it yet. We'll have it again later today. We'll have it again tomorrow. They care about us. It's not just a one and done, of just selling their stuff and then we're done, we're good. They think about us, and they have like the timed things, like the Barbarian. Yes, everybody wants the Barbarian. It's one of the greatest figures. It's wonderful. But they're bringing, it's not just an exclusive to ZoloCon. They're bringing it to so many other cons, all the major cons that they're bringing them to. And then at the end of the year, they also have it. So it's like, yes, it's excitement and stuff, but they care about us. They want to make sure that everyone has a chance to get it. And I think that they care about the collectors when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, it's the process too, And then what happens? You look forward to, Dork Layer is going to have an unboxing video. So you're going to get to see Bill, and you're going to get to see Bill's surprise, right? It's just, they're building this world. They're building this culture around action figures. They're building this
tradition,
childhood connection to what was really cool when I was a kid, when I was looking at the Christmas catalog. Couldn't wait to get Mom, did the JCPenney?
Yes.
Mom, did the Penny's catalog come in? Hold on, it's here. Go do your homework.
Yes.
After you have dinner, if there's enough time, you can start looking at the Christmas catalog, right? All of those things in place actually built, it's a world builder for you, whether it's subconscious or conscious. And the Horsemen understand that. They get it because they were the same kids as we were.
Right.
And now they have the opportunity to do these things and bring their joys and their visions and their tangible, wonderful, magnificent action figures to a community and then build fun around it. You know, one more thing, hats off, because the Four Horsemen do things. Not only do they think about us first, but how many fans have been brought into the Four Horsemen, pillars of honor, whether they have a tribute figure named after them, whether Eric Miller brought in as a custom painter. Now he works with them. Jeremy Gerard, a customizing channel, and now he's head of marketing and sales, right?
Yeah.
Like the stories,
true.
Right. And people see that. And I don't think they did that on purpose just to build it. Maybe they did. I don't know. But they see the genuineness of taking the fans and bringing them part of this dream. Hey, you know what? Get in. Let's keep riding forward together, and that's what I love about it. There's just a lot more there. So.
Yeah, they're good to all of us. They welcome all of us when we go to the cons, when we're at Legion's Con. They're out there with us celebrating, their amazing creations. They're there with us. They're sharing what they make because they know we love it. They're sharing it with us. We're there with them, and it's just, I don't know.
How cool is this? My very first Legion's Con, I got to sit down and hang out with Eric Treadaway for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
While the con's going on. It doesn't happen.
No.
Last Legion's Con, I was coming out, I was on third floor at the hotel, and I'm coming out, and there is Cornboy. Mm-hmm. And so we start talking. I learned so much about Cornboy that his kid was in the military. We started talking about my military. He was in Afghanistan, talked about when I came back. We shared a lot of personal things back and forth, and we bonded. Where else is that going to happen with CEOs or owners or, heads of these departments of these toy labels?
Right.
It doesn't happen that often. I'm not saying it never happens anywhere else. I'm just saying they're all in, and they're genuinely 100% personal human beings that have passion for what they do and the love for us as the fans. And they recognize it and they don't forget it.
Right. Amen. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Switching gears a little bit. I want to ask a few things. So you live on the West Coast. Is it harder to collect on the West Coast? Is there more things? Is it things available? I know you were at a toy show in Washington, I guess I saw the other day, and you did find some Mythics. Is that kind of a rare thing?
Yeah, it is, especially up here in the Pacific Northwest, which is very, very odd because most of this is a very eclectic, geeky, nerdy community up here between Portland and Seattle. So you get a lot of that. And there's a lot of art up here. In fact, if it's not DC or Marvel, almost every other label, Image, all this stuff. I'm literally 20 minutes from Dark Horse, right? From all this stuff.
Right.
It's amazing that all this is here, but yes, the Mythic footprint is not here. The Four Horsemen footprint, for that matter, is not here as large as it is east of the Mississippi River. Mm-hmm. I was talking to Robert Mastarella, aka Uncle Bob, Vintage Toys. Me and him are very tight, and we were sharing some thought process. And I actually told him at one point, and I'm not ruling this out. Let's just put it this way. So I know this is going to go live, and I'm just going to say this, but I'm not ruled out moving back that way. I'm from Chicago, so I've never ruled out the fact to do that, to follow a passion and a love of something I enjoy, as long as I can still make a living and do what I need to do to be in that area. Now, the flip side is I can also be the ambassador out here and start ramping up that presence out here, which I have talked with some components, some individuals with the Horsemen about having not just a West Coast, like the West Coast meetup down south, they've had that, but to get like a Pacific Northwest. Now Brian Von Berk's out here. Roberto Suarez is out here, Puerto Rican. I think Bonnie Rotten's out here. I think the Goblin King or whatever, he's out here. There's a few of them that are out here, but nowhere near the saturation as it is back, on the Midwest, East Coast.
Well, I think they're listening now more to fans on the West Coast. They've answered by going, saying they're going to, San Diego Comic-Con. I think there's a meetup in
That's huge.
Sacramento.
That's huge.
So yeah, it's good. I think the more vocal fans are on the West Coast, that they will start having more of a presence. I know, I mean, it's a lot of work for them because all their product is on, New Jersey. So, it's not gonna be as big as it would be if it was on the East Coast, which, it would be nice if they had like a distribution center or not a factory, but a warehouse where they could, get stuff from, a warehouse maybe more in the Western area, to stock shows or stuff like that, maybe in stock sales kind of thing or whatever. But I don't know. Hopefully, I'm hoping stuff like that will happen in the future.
Me
More
too. And I would love to be a part of that. I had talked to two Legions cons ago. I did talk to Eric Tredever. That was part of that conversation I had, was just about his childhood, his sculpting, just complimentary. And then, hey, what would you need from somebody out this way to start expanding the footprint? And, I'm an operations manager for a very large company. And I understand P&Ls. I understand profit and loss, costs, shipping, your VGP, your variable gross profit margin. The Horsemen aren't a charity organization. They're a for-profit business. They have to make money to turn around and pay to continue making more figures and bringing more dreams to us. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they got to make a little bit on the side. Some of them got to pay their bills too. I mean, I get it. So you got to be careful on, how far do you expand your footprint? How fast do you do it? And then, what's your bank account look like of actually doing that? So I totally get why the West Coast is hard. And every time Jeremy's talked about it on Mythic Conversations or whenever he's been on a conversation, it's like, guys, I understand, but there's logistics and cost.
Right.
And there absolutely is. But I would like to, I've talked to some of the other team members around here, the Mythic, family around here. I would love to expand that footprint and, extend whatever I could from my capabilities to bring that out this way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. I lived in South Dakota for a while, and it was desolate for collectors. There was nothing there, man. Nothing. And it was a bummer. And it's a little bit better in Michigan. We are getting MuskyCon this weekend, and I'm grateful, but that's about as big as it gets. We don't get very many toy shows out here, unfortunately, but
at least you're in driving distance. You could hit some toy shows. Yeah, you could jump on a puddle jumper and hit some of these shows a little bit easier.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's like a 5.5 hour flight, 4.5, 5 hour flight. You're talking $500, $600, $900 depending on the flight you take plus hotel. These are like, anywhere from $800 to $2,000 endeavors just to go to one show when you're out here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's tough for sure. So do you think that they're making the right choices in their growth as a company? Because they've definitely grown since we've been fans. I think they've definitely grown. You could see it in the community. You can see it in their waves. The frequency of the stuff that they're releasing. I think it's all it's all connected about their growth and how much stuff they're producing nowadays.
Yeah, to answer your question, I think from a fan's point, I think they're doing an excellent job. Mm-hmm. More and more people that I run into or I show a figure to or whatever, they're like, oh, is that the Mythic Legions? I've heard about them, so, and out here, that's big, right? The more and more people that, I'm out marketing them all the time just because I enjoy their products and believe in what they do. So yeah, I have no problem taking a figure and putting it on my desk, doing
your part.
Right. But it's fun doing that. It's not like I can speak for myself. I'm not out there trying to, get brownie points or anything. I'm doing it because inside passionately, I believe in what they do and I want them to expand their footprint. I like what Jeremy said a while back, and he said something that was very, very important to me about this line was we don't want to be a Hasbro. We don't want to be a Mattel.
Right.
There is a certain point of growth where your profit margin's good, it's sustainable, You're able to make your dreams come true, but you don't get wrapped up in, stock market.
Right.
You're privately traded. Now you're dealing with all of that. And I've seen that in the businesses that I've worked in after I left law enforcement. Between the fitness industry and some of the other things I've been doing, they're all corporate businesses,
Right.
and they're publicly traded. And there's something that comes into that. And you also lose control. As an artist, the Horsemen understand this, just a little tidbit. Todd McFarlane talked about this also, where when he was at Marvel, he's like, I only have so much control that I have. And they keep wanting me to draw this, this, and this because it makes money. The Four Horsemen are in a great spot because they're allowed to just continue to bring their passions. They are their own CEOs. They are their own investors. So
right. The only thing they have to answer to is their artistry, their art that they make. That's and their fans. They don't answer to their fans, but they listen to their fans and respond.
Absolutely.
But yeah, is there anything in this Four Horsemen Studios? Is there something that you would like to see them make, like in the future, or like a direction that you'd like to see them head towards, or veer off towards something? Is there something that you'd like to see?
Wow. That's, as much as they turn out amazing action figures, I can think of a lot of things I'd like them to do that I think that some other companies haven't done certain lines justice or whatever. Mm-hmm. With that said, no, I actually really enjoy being surprised.
Me too.
When they opened up the world of Mythic, the map at G-Con, at one point I was sitting there going, wow, it'd be cool if they had this, or, everyone's done it, pirates and serpents and blah, 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 and all this, where's our dragon? And the end result is I knew they were going to get there sooner or later.
Right.
And the end result is it's not always about rushing off to the finish line. It's enjoying the journey.
Yes.
That's the most important. And they're creating a journey that's exciting. It's time-paced. And make no mistake about it, we're not all millionaires. Like, there isn't anything that Four Horsemen's made that I haven't wanted to buy. So unless I strike the lotto,
right.
I like the pace they're on. We're good. We're good.
Me too. It's doable. Like when Necro came out, unfortunately I didn't get to pre-order, but I realize now that I don't need to buy everything right away. The stuff is going to be there. I could take my time. If I want a couple of Elijahs to do different things, different displays or whatever, I can. It's not a race. Just enjoy, picking up when you can, or picking up, when you go to a con or trading with friends or something like that. Just keep it fun.
Yeah, well, and that, I think that's also growth within collecting and us being, Mythic fans and Four Horsemen fan. If you think about it, back in the early waves, that was kind of a programming that we're trying to get out of now. I'm not saying that you don't pre-order. You absolutely pre-order.
Right.
So like Jeremy says, it's going to be the cheapest you're going to get it, and you're going to guarantee at least, one copy of each in an all-in, or whatever you do. But to the flip side of that is that you don't need to rush off, like you said. When we were newer in the older ways, we had to, because there wasn't a lot of production run.
Right.
So we were kind of conditioned in the early waves that, like, oh, if you don't, you got to pay $300 on eBay. Right. And look at some of those waves. Right. I just told you a story before we went out, we started talking here, where I looked at a couple figures last night and I was like, some, in that first and second wave. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to hold off. I'm not going to dump $300-$400 on one figure.
Right.
I need to have, but that created when they were getting off the ground, and that wasn't something they did on purpose. That was just them, hitting their stride and seeing how many they could sell and how many fans would really be a fan of their product. And unfortunately, that made less production runs back then. Now they're figuring it out. They're making more production runs. They're getting, buy-ins with like Big Bad Toy Store. They're able to have stuff on their own online.
Right.
What a dream is that, to still, to this day, go on Four Horsemen and actually sit there and look at their website and go, I'm going to take a night. I'm going to take this. You couldn't do that back at the beginning.
I think they're fair too. It's like they know there's night fans like me, They know there's Goblin fans, there's you know, Gladiator fans, there's Monster fans, and they try to appease everybody, you know, when it comes to their waves and what, you know, what they release and stuff. They try to make a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, they're very cognizant of, you know, thinking outside the box and bringing more options than we even sometimes think about.
Right. And as to value or trying to pick up older figures, that ties into a question I'm going to ask you before we end. But I think the value of the figures is also that a lot of people don't get rid of their figures. Like, you know, some of the older figures, the collectors, they still collect them, they still have them. So there's less in the market because they don't let them go. You know, yeah, and maybe I have a surgery and I've got to sell my Ravina, my Keltis, and my, you know, Adamon or something. But I have friends that just started collecting, and they're like, man, I can't find a Lucretia, or I can't find a Morgulith. And it's like, it's not because, maybe it's because they're rare, but it's also because a lot of the collectors, they're not letting those go. You know, they're in their collection, they don't want to let those go, they're not going to sell those. So
you're absolutely correct. That is definitely another angle.
Fans stay as fans. We stay as fans usually. We don't.
Well, that's a good statement too. You know, a lot of people don't think about that, but look on the aftermarket. And if you find a figure that's going for big money, you can get mad all you want, but the end result is take away what the learning is from that. And the learning is that's a cool figure.
It's a cool figure.
People want that figure. That's right. The only reason the price is going up, supply and demand.
Absolutely.
Right? So yeah, are there some scalpers out there? You know, whatever. We're not going to get into that conversation, but what we can say is you can learn from that and say, okay, there's only two out there, and each one are anywhere from $300 to $500 a piece. What does that say? Oh, someone's trying to get rich. No, that's not what they're trying to say. That's saying those are really cool figures, and nobody's parting with the ones they have, just like you said.
Exactly. So, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. And this line teaches me patience. It's like, you know, hopefully there'll be a deal. You know, maybe I'll be at a show somewhere and I'll see the first Sir Gideon sitting there, and it's a good deal, you know, or the guy likes me enough to give me a good deal, and you know, I go home with it. So, you know, what it is. I wanted to ask you before we end is, what advice could you give to someone who is new to Mythics, you know, a new collector in this line? What kind of advice would you give them?
Follow your heart. Follow your heart. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to start collecting or get involved, just pay attention and go the direction that you need to go. Don't let anybody influence you regarding on what you should buy or what you shouldn't buy. Don't allow this collecting of mythics or cosmics or even figure obscura. Don't let any of the horseman figures. Don't let anybody like pressure you into the aspect of what, oh, you should pick that up or whatever. Buy what you want to buy, like what you want to like, and enjoy the community and the overall wonderful connection that you're going to, which you probably don't even know, especially if you're new in the Mythic community, this wonderful family that you're going to become part of.
I couldn't say any better myself.
That's exactly what the Four Horsemen want. I can almost guarantee it. Now, I'm not speaking for them, but you know, we've heard enough conversations of where they pour their heart out, what they like and why they do what they do. If you're doing this for the right reasons, which is for you, and the passion of collecting action figures and tangibly having these beautiful pieces of artistic plastic in your hand, then you're doing it for the right reason.
Absolutely. Let me see that Elijah again.
Oh, yeah. Well.
Or whatever. So, show whatever you want to show. You got some.
Yeah, I got a few here lined up. They were sitting on here. I was doing some. So obviously.
Let me undigging you. Hold on. Look at that.
So
that
two versions of Elijah, right? There's many versions. And then Sir Baldric, and I'm a Necro fan. So I put this one together.
Oh, yeah. It's a great skull. You said that's from the Walter the Mad?
Yep, that's the Walter the Mad that comes with the cosmic side of it, where, you know, this goes with this orange spacesuit. And then, you know, one of the other wonderful things, we didn't even talk about this, Greg, but the customizing aspect of Mythics brings a whole nother aspect.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's huge. Well, we'll have to have you on again, and we'll talk more about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that has helped, if anybody was wondering, that was painted by Skelosoria. just as
Beautiful.
well as this one right here.
Jeez. Beautiful.
So yeah, the support, the amount of people that feel like they're part of this community for various reasons, whether it's, customizing, painting, the camaraderie, art books, right? Was that Dang Studios? Am I correct? Did I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Art books, David Williams and his artwork, making pins now, and Nate Barch's art. I mean, you and I could go on for a whole nother several hours, and I know we're going to try to keep it down here, but the amount of talent, good-hearted people, and great feelings that come with this community are second to none.
Yeah. I've said it. It's an anomaly. Like, I've never seen a collection of so many generous, kind-hearted, friendly, ridiculously talented people.
Unselfish.
There's room for everyone. There's different levels of expertise and mastery in any of these things, in painting or customizing, sculpting, or whatever, but everyone is open and free to help you, to teach you what they know, to learn what they know, like that. Where do you see that at? There's not that competitiveness here that I've seen. Everyone helps and lifts up everyone else, and it's just it's a beautiful thing, man.
It is a beautiful thing. The world we live in right now and has been, there's a lot of tumultuous stuff going on out there, and this brings me happiness.
Me too, man. Amen, brother. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to wrap it up. I would love to have you on again. I really enjoyed our conversation. I was talking. I did a show. I just taped a show. So I watched your episode with Mark. And then the next day I taped a show with my friend Nick Gonzalez. He's a young man that I met a few times at Legion's Con. Really good kid. And he was talking about how his dad comes over and sees his stuff. He thinks it's cool. Like, he won't even pick it up because he's too manly. He's too macho. But he'll look at his son's stuff and he's like, I know that my dad likes this stuff. I know my dad thinks it's cool. But in him, there's something so masculine and macho that he can't acknowledge, or, you couldn't give him you couldn't give him a Sir Elijah. It wouldn't work. You know what I mean? Or maybe it would. I don't know. But, there's still that old macho thing. And when I saw your show and then I talked to Nick about that, I was just like, oh man, I've got to talk to Blake about that, because it is a real thing. It is that real thing where it's almost a taboo, action figures and toys and collecting and stuff like that. It's not for grown-ups, and it's not accurate. It's not real,
It's not socially acceptable. And I think the last message I would say is that once again, get rid of the labels and stuff, especially from you and I, Greg. We were born in a generation where that was very true. Your dad was like, don't cry, suck it up.
Yes.
Right. Don't show your emotions. And here's the deal. You don't need to be out there going, and you don't need to be bawling about everything. I mean, I spent my first 20 years as a Marine, combat, policing in 2 large cities. I've seen, hey, any collector on here that's watching this, especially young collectors, understand this. You are super cool if you're a nerd or a dork and you collect action figures, because you know what? I've watched several of my action figure childhood heroes. They have action figures in their room. Arnold Schwarzenegger in his office has action figures. Mm-hmm. Sylvester Stallone likes this stuff. Right. So the facade that was preached to us back then is not the truth. It was just a macho thing.
Absolutely.
Move past that. Enjoy what you do.
The coolest thing is to be yourself. That's the coolest thing you could do.
Absolutely. And accept everybody equally. This world's got plenty of room for all of us, and you don't need to be out there judging, putting jackets or labels on people. Just live your life. Be kind. Look to the person to the left or right. Give them a smile. Maybe they don't live the lifestyle you do, but maybe that smile you give them will close the gaps out there that we have. And it'll get rid of all of these siloed mentalities and start opening things up a little bit more to treat each other like just wonderful human beings.
And maybe that's why we embrace this community, because it's just a little sliver of some goodness, you know, that we can be in, that we can be around, and, you know, wish that maybe the world was a little bit more like this community. You know, if more people were in this community, that, or the community, you know, I don't know how to say it, but I love how the community is, and I wish that, you know, the world kind of mirrored it a little bit more than, you know, than
Absolutely.
It does now. So.
This is the legion for the world I want to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, my man. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a fun hour. I really enjoyed my conversation with you. I'd love to have it again sometime. Love to see you again. And thank you guys for watching and being here. So thank you guys very much, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Remember, friends, to always have fun, be curious, share, and enjoy what this line has to offer. Come for the toys, but stay for the friends. Good night, and thank you very much.